Why do people say hardware sounds better than plugins? Well, that is a question for. It's going to last forever. The hardware digital argument is never going away. You see, hardware is like this juice, okay? All right? It's 100% juice, right? You can't fake juice. Okay? Just like you can't fake hardware sound. You can't fake the sound coming out of these hardware pieces of gear. You can try. You can try. And some people will fall for it. Some people will make themselves believe that the artificial juice is real juice and it tastes just like juice. But that 100% juice, though, you can't fake the taste of 100% juice, just like you can't fake the sound of analog gear with digital VSTs. Simple as that. Simple as that. It's really not much of an argument. I mean, the harmonic distortion that you get from these analog pieces of gear, this hardware gear, it has such a clarity in the mids and the low end. It makes your signal, whatever signal's coming in, it makes it fat, if that makes sense. It makes it fat. It injects life into the sound, right? It injects electricity into the sound. If I don't even know if, like, it just injects life into the sound. Analog gear injects life into sound. You can't fake 100% real juice, right? You can trick yourself into thinking that it's real. You can trick yourself all you want. But not me. Not me. That's why I invested so much into my studio, you know? And this isn't even the top tier gear. That's my problem. This isn't even top tier gear, okay? It's just that getting your sound out of the digital world into this physical space through electricity, it matters. It changes your sound. It gives your sound a certain characteristic that you cannot achieve digitally because it's impossible. Digital is ones and zeros, okay? This is real. This is real. This is real. All right? How does using an MPC change your workflow compared to working in a DAW? Great question. Using this MPC is an absolute terror compared to using a DAW. Okay? When you're working in the box, everything is sunshine and rainbows. Okay? Everything is beautiful. When you're working in this MPC, particularly this MPC 2000, you have to use your brain a little bit more than you're used to. A little bit more than you're used to. And I know that's hard for some of you guys. But I think the limitations of these machines opens a different part of your brain that you've never used before. You never used before. And in turn, that gives an opening to creativity, right? When you're working hard, when you're trying to figure out these machines, trying to figure out these boards, your mind has to like open up and, you know, take in this new information. Now, when you're opening one part of the brain, another one might open up, the creativity part. You might get an idea like, oh, Also, you have to think a lot simpler, right? Because first of all, the best music is simple. There's nothing to it. If you listen to any radio hit, any hit at all, any great song, super simple, but the message is powerful, right? When you're using hardware gear, it stops you from overcomplicating things, if that makes sense. Even though it looks very complicated. It looks very complicated using all this stuff, right? All these knobs and buttons and stuff. All these knobs and buttons. It looks very complicated, but it's so complicated that it makes your workflow simple, right? Once you got a sound locked on, to the BPM, onto the metronome on this MPC, and it sounds good that first time, you're leaving it. You're leaving it alone. You're leaving it alone. You don't have any VSTs to mess with the sound too much. You see, that's the problem with VSTs, right? When you have access to 100 billion VSTs, your sound probably sounded good. Your sound was probably there in that first 3 minutes that you made it. That was it. That first gut feeling that you had when you were like, yo, this is it. That first like feeling of, I got something here. That was it. Leave it alone. Leave it alone. Okay. Continue rolling on that creativity train, right? That's what these pieces of gear force you to do, right? These analog pieces of gear. When you have access to all these VSTs, I used to mix in FL Studio when I first started. I used to make a beat maybe in like 10, 15 minutes, right? The core skeleton of the beat. And I used to be mixing and tweaking and adding VSTs that I don't need and adding all kind of crap for like hours, trying to make it sound better when really it was the source that was flawed, right? So when the source is hitting right, when the source is there, you don't have to touch it. And that's the beauty of analog gear. That's the beauty of hardware gear, is that once it sounds good, it sounds good. That's it. And these machines sound good. When you get a preamp, when you get a compressor, when you get a rack sampler, hardware EQ, tube EQ, tubes. Don't get me started with tubes, because, oh man, tape. Come on. You're never going to perfectly emulate hardware gear. You need a supercomputer. You need an absolute supercomputer to 100% emulate hardware gear. So why do these hardware companies spend countless of hours, their developers just, referencing A being hardware gear, let's get it right, let's tweak it, let's tweak this, let's tweak the ones and zeros, let's tweak the ones and zeros to make it sound kind of like hardware gear, to make it sound, like you guys like to say, close enough. All right? I need the 100%. I don't want 99%. I don't want 95%. I don't want 96. I don't want 97. I don't want 98%. I don't want 99.9% accuracy in a VST. I want the real thing, baby. The real thing, baby. 100% juice, okay? You could keep consuming that fake stuff if you want. But you can't emulate hardware gear with digital VSTs. I know you guys are sick and tired of me hearing me say that. But you can't do it. Can't be done. All right. When did you realize your sound was unique? Wow. Oh my God. I realized that my sound was unique when my beats didn't fit in to any of the other sounds that were out there in the world. That's when I knew my sounds were unique. Okay, unique. What is unique? Okay, what is unique? It's different, right? That's an interesting question. Being different as a producer is very important. Is very important to be different as a producer. Okay, I know the urge to make that same old trap beat is very strong. Okay, especially in today's oversaturated producer market, like where producers are just making beats to, you know, have a certain sound so they can sell more beats, right? Because artists are kind of basic. There's a lot of basic artists out there, right? There's a lot of basic artists out there, and there's nothing really special about them. And you don't really have to be special in today's day, right? In the day of social media, you really don't have to be special. You just have to have a little something weird about you, weird enough to gain a social media following. You get big enough, brands will start coming in, start asking you, you know, to promote their stuff, or you might get a deal with someone. It might open doors to work with new artists. So, you know, creativity and talent really doesn't matter too much in today's day. But personally, I feel that being different than everyone else is what's going to set you apart from the sea of producers, right? Real recognize real. That's an old saying, right? Real recognize real, okay? I notice when I see producers stepping out of their comfort zone, trying different things, because that was me. That was me to this day, right? I'm using tape machines. I'm using all this hardware gear. I'm using lo-fi keyboards, you know, just to get a different sound. I think the best artists, the best producers are just a little weird. There's something a little different about them, right? There's something a little different about them. And there's some characteristics that you can't fake, right? Some people just have a thing about them that you're like, I don't know what it is about this person, but, and it's kind of sad, right? Because sometimes that's a natural God-given thing. Like you could try to fake. You can only fake so much who you are as a person. It's gonna run out one day. So that's why I'm always on here just speaking my mind. I'm just speaking my mind. I'm literally freestyling off the top of my dome. Thoughts that pop into my mind that I find interesting. And for some reason, it absolutely when I start talking, people get mad. Why? I don't know. That's just what I do. It's my God-given ability. It's my God-given right to piss you off. All right? Some people are really good at it. Some people are really good at it. You know? So, and I'm not going to front. A saying that has stuck with me for the last, I think, I don't know, since 2017. I don't know how many years that is. Sound Oracle. Shout out to Sound Oracle. He said, be different, be dope. Right? Be different, be dope. And that has stuck with me to this day, right? Because that's when I felt that what I was doing at the time was okay. It's okay to be different, right? It's okay to be different. And sometimes you got to work at being dope, right? Some people are naturally different than everyone else, but not everyone is naturally dope. I believe that can be trained. Dopeness can be trained, right? If you study hard enough, if you surround yourself with whatever you feel is dope, you will become dope in your eyes. And that's all that matters, right? Everyone else can do whatever they want. Just be dope to yourself first, and then they will come. Shout out to Sound Oracle. Sound Oracle, not only does he drop infinite amounts of gems on people, right? But his sound designing is really, really unique. It's really different. Personally, my favorite pack that he's done is the gems from the ASR 10. Gems from the ASR 10 I use almost in every beat, whether it be a snare or a kick. Every time I'm using, and you know what? I took it a step further. For this S3000, inside of this S3000, I have a Zulu SCSI drive loaded with all of Sound Oracle's kits. And I extract the drums. I record the drums out of this S3000 into whatever I'm doing, right? Because here I feel like, even though it's digitally stored, I feel like it's never going to go away. Whatever I store inside of this S3000 is never going to go away, right? Because it's running through a Zulu SCSI drive. Everything on that Zulu SCSI drive is cemented in stone. It is never going away unless I break it somehow. Okay? And I have most of Sound Oracle's drum kits. I have most of Decap's drum kits. A little bit of Cymatic stuff. Beat Butcher. I got a lot of Beat Butcher stuff in that S3000. I draw all of my sounds from that S3000. I extract them into this mixer. I process them a little bit just to match whatever vibe I'm doing, and it's going. But I love Sound Oracle kits. I used to really love Decap kits, but I've kind of grown from them, if that makes sense. I've evolved from the Decap kit. Decap's kits are really dope. Don't get me wrong. But I feel like they have a limit of, like, once you load a Decap kick in, once you load a snare, that's it, you're done. The beat is going to sound like the drums, if that makes sense. That's a crazy way to think of it. But once you get those drums locked on, the beat kind of naturally falls into place, right? So whatever your drums are sounding like, that's what your melody is going to sound like. The vibe has to match. Everything has to match, right? Everything has to match. It's like having white rice with pernil. It don't match, right? White rice with lasagna. It don't match. It's like eating fried chicken with eggs. To me, it don't match. It don't match. Everything has to match in your beat. It's like eating a spaghetti sandwich with no meat in it. It don't match. That's all carbs. Pointless. Anyway, how have your placements changed the way you produce? How have your placements changed the way you produce? Huh. Well, when you start working with more and more artists, the way you produce is going to change. The way you make beats, the way you think about making beats is going to change. You're going to evolve because when you're really working with an artist, when you have a back and forth with a real artist, you're going to send them something. He's going to send it back. And they're going to say, can you change this, and that? Okay, you change it. You're having a back and forth. You're having a dialogue. Ooh, I don't like this. Ooh, I like this. I think you should do this. You should do that. Over time, you're going to learn what works. You're going to learn what works for you, like how to make artists sound better. Or you're going to learn why artists are coming to you, because that is very important to know what you bring to the table, right? So yeah, your sound selection is going to change. The way you mix is going to change. How complicated or simple your beats are, that's going to change. Working with artists changes everything. You can make beats by yourself all day. You can make beats by yourself all day, but if you're not sending them out to artists, what are you doing? It's pointless. It's pointless. I don't care, bro. There is so much potential when you're in the producer realm. There's so much potential, right? Use this stuff to the full. Take advantage of all this. If you're not sending beats to artists, what are you doing this for? I don't understand, right? And it's not about money. Money comes afterwards. Money will come once you start progressing, once you start making connections, once you start networking, once you start getting yourself out there, the money will come. But what are you doing just sitting there making beats for nothing? Now, I understand developing your craft, right? I understand 10,000 hours, all that shit. But I don't know. I feel like I wasted a lot of time in the beginning of my career, especially when I was young, right? Especially when I was young. I could have been doing, like, I had dope beats. To me, the beats were dope. But they were just sitting there, and I don't know. Now, granted, me personally, I've been working with artists since I was like 17 years old. Like 16, 17, because the minute I started bringing my beats, I used to make beats in FL Studio, right? I used to burn them onto a CD, bring them to school because my school had a music class. And I used to bring my music to the class. I used to pop it in the CD player. I start playing beats, and out of nowhere, rappers would come. The rappers would come. I mean, I grew up in the Bronx, New York. There's rappers everywhere. There's rappers everywhere. I'm sure now with this new generations, people's moms is rapping. People's fathers is rapping. You know what I mean? But so I was exposed early to the studio life. I was exposed early to sound. The school I was in, they used to have school trips to like music studios, and that's when I first got exposed to hardware gear. It was in high school, and I couldn't go back to FL Studio. When I would get home and I would play my beats, I would be like, yo, it just doesn't sound the same to me. It doesn't sound the same, or it doesn't feel the same. And it wasn't because the studio speakers, all that shit, right? It was the sonics weren't the same. When you're producing in the box, when you're using hardware gear, the sonics are not the same. And I was exposed to that early, right? I mean, these studio trips, they had SB1200s, they had the Emaxes, they had the MPC 60 and the 3K. They had a bunch of preamps, a bunch of compressors. I think they had like 1176s, all the top tier stuff, dude. And the minute I walked in there, the minute I felt that big ass door slam behind me in that studio room, boom, I was like, oh my God, I'm home. I'm home. So ever since that day, I went home and I was just hammering away, trying to find my sound. I was chasing that sound in my head. And here we are, 25 some odd years later. Probably more than that. What advice would you give to new producers trying to get noticed? In today's day, with social media the way it is, you got to be different. You got to be weird. You can't be afraid to be yourself. You can't be afraid to be yourself, because whatever you think is cringe, whatever you're suppressing because you don't want people to think you're retarded or something, you got to let that go. You got to let that person out, because that is you. That is the real you, right? The most powerful weapon on social media right now, we all have it for the most part. Our voice. Use your voice. Speak your mind. Say everything that's in there. Don't write nothing down. Don't plan nothing. Just go off the top of the dome. Practice that every day. Practice your speaking, right? And that'll evolve. Because when I tell you, I was a terrible speaker. I had the worst communication skills when I was a teenager, and that's what was holding me down. I didn't do good in school. You know, I could have did better. I joined the Marine Corps, which kind of, I was forced to communicate. So that actually helped me, you know. But you got to use your voice. In this world, you have to use your voice. That is your most powerful weapon right here. And if you're not using it, dead in the water, man. You're going to have you're going to go through things that are completely unnecessary and could have been avoided if you just learned how to use your mouth correctly. No homo. Pause. No diddy. How do you balance creativity with business? How do you balance creativity with anything you have going on in your life? Me, I have a job. I have a 9-to-5. I've worked for since I was 17. For a long time, I've been working. But at the same time, I've been making these beats, right? You have to prioritize what's important in your life. You have to prioritize what's important in your life, okay? And you know what? You just got to do it, man. You just got to do it. You got to shut up and do it. Do what you want to do, right? I'm not going to sit here and give stupid advice, okay? Like, nobody listens to advice anymore anyway. Why do you use both Ableton and FL Studio? Well, I started in FL Studio, okay? I evolved as a producer and I needed more flexibility. I needed more access to my sound. And FL Studio is it's almost like using this hardware gear a little bit. Like it has limitations to me because I still don't really know how to use FL Studio. And I've been using it for 20 plus years. But I don't care to, because that's what I like about FL Studio, is that I notice when I'm using FL Studio, I use way less VSTs, if any. When I'm in Ableton, I'm like a mad scientist. And I'm cutting back on that. I have to stop doing that because I'm a producer. I'm more of a producer than I am a sound designer, right? I know that. So, but I use both of them because sometimes I have to, there's certain tools in Ableton that make it easier to fix things in your sound than there is FL Studio. So sometimes I go back and forth. And as far as sound, they both sound the same. The only thing FL Studio sounds a little bit different is the soft clipper. And that's only because everyone's using it and it's cool. It's a cool sound now and blah, blah, blah. But that's all subjective. But to me, FL Studio and Ableton sound the same. Maybe FL Studio runs a little louder That's why people think it sounds better. But if you bring it down, same shit. Let's talk about the MPC Live 3, okay? Because a lot of you guys are getting it absolutely twisted. What I said, you guys are getting it absolutely twisted. And I understand, because you guys are at like a different time in your creative journey, right? If you already have an MPC, if you already have FL Studio or Ableton, me personally, I don't think you need the new MPC 3. If the MPC Live 3 isn't doing anything to the converters, if it's not doing anything to the analog outputs, if you're not getting at least more I/O in the back, right? If it's a fully digital machine, then it's doing nothing for me. It is doing absolutely nothing for me, because you can literally make the same exact beat in FL Studio or Ableton. I don't care. I don't care if you know, these, you can't compare the new MPCs to the old MPCs. You can't compare the two. Two different beasts. Two different beasts. Okay? Now, I understand if you're just starting out, you just started to make beats within the last 5-6 years. All right, cool. You want to buy the new MPC, but I'm telling you that it's pointless. And eventually, it's going to be sitting in your closet collecting dust. You know, if you're serious about this music production stuff, you're going to evolve. Your thoughts are going to evolve. The way you produce is going to evolve. You're not going to stay stuck in the same. Oh, God, I'm done talking about this shit. I'm sick of talking about this stuff. Hardware gear. If your hardware gear isn't coloring your sound, it's pointless to have, okay? It's just... This is a Casio SK1. This is a lo-fi animal right here. This is the king of lo-fi. I mean, you want to talk about lo-fi, get yourself a if you want to hear lo-fi for real, get yourself a Casio SK1. Granted, this only has like 1 second of sample time, and you're going to have to work your ass off trying to make a beat with it. But if you like lo-fi, this is your guy. Casio SK1. Go check it out. It's an 8-bit sampler. 8-bit, like Nintendo. And it's just awesome. Casio SK1. It has a microphone in it. You know, you can sample, you know, fart sounds if you want. It has its own sounds, you know. Hey, yo! Hey, yo! Hey, yo! Ah! All right, this thing is dope, man. Go check it out. This is a Korg Monotron. I got this on eBay for, I don't know, $50. And this thing sounds so cool, man. It's you know, it's got cutoff. It's got time manipulation. It's got feedback modulation. It's got an aux input and output, so you can actually run sounds through it. Korg Monotron. This thing sounds amazing. Korg Monotron. Super cheap. It's battery operated. Awesome. This is a Roland P6. This is a Roland P6, okay? I don't know why I bought this. This 100% was an impulse buy. 100% impulse. It was new, it was cool, and I was like, I was just in a mood. It was about $250, you know, not too bad. But this box, you 100% need a reason to buy it. Like, why do you need this, right? You can make beats on the go if that's your kind of thing. It doesn't have a speaker on it, but it has headphone input, output, whatever. It manipulates sound really well. I like the lo-fi effect and the compressor on this. And I just love Roland, right? Let's just be real. I love Roland. I have the JV880, you know, the 3080, the 5080. I love Roland, so that's why I bought it. You know, call me a fanboy, whatever. The Roland P6 it's cool if you're that kind of producer, right? But I don't know. Maybe I'm using it wrong. Maybe I don't have the patience to mess with all like the menu diving, but I do like the compressor and the lo-fi effects that you can add to your beats with this Roland P6, right? Yeah, and I'm gonna keep it forever. Pass it down to my kids. Maybe they'll do something with all this. Tape. VHS tape. Ooh, baby. Do I love the sound of VHS tape? Now, this VHS tape I got at a thrift store, and it says Mariah's 40th birthday. I'm just going to say it's Mariah Carey. But I've been recording sounds onto it with this old VCR, and I have a video on YouTube of how I do that. Definitely go check it out. But the sound that you can get from a VHS tape, it's like a crusty, warbly, weirdly filtered. It drops in and out. It's just, you really can't emulate this with digital VSTs. Like, I don't care. It's not going to sound the same. Nothing's going to sound the same as real tape. Okay? Nothing will sound the same as real tape. So I love VHS tape. I love VHS tape. All right? It's weird, but I love it.